So what we're going to talk about today, the subject of the mastermind group is the process libraries. So these are the libraries that Pilmma has built inside of Touchstone. And inside those libraries, you have access to download pre-built procedures. Now in the Pilmma libraries, these procedures are industry specific to law firms. In some cases, they're even law type specific. So I'm going to show you all of those libraries and kind of point out how to use them and what they are and highlight some of the key processes that I think are really good within them. I'm also going to show you the Touchstone library. So in addition to the Pilmma libraries, the Touchstone system has its own libraries. Now these libraries are not industry specific. They're meant to be for all businesses of all types. And there are quite a few kind of general boilerplate best practices kind of processes that all businesses need, and they're not necessarily industry specific at all. And so that's what you'll find inside of the Touchstone libraries. For the Touchstone libraries, I'm going to focus specifically on some key management processes because in the Touchstone libraries, we do a really good job of the documentation of key management systems. And management is obviously so important to the effective running of a business. And the functionality within Touchstone, the tools that you'll find in Touchstone really support management processes and help managers be better at their job. So right now you're looking at the Touchstone dashboard screen, which is this screen right here in front of you. The dashboard is what you see every time you log in. It's also what your employees will see when they log into Touchstone, the very first screen that pops open. This dashboard screen is all mobile compliant as well. So when you or your employees are logging in, they can do it from smartphones, from tablets, any kind of device, and they'll be able to see and use the functionality on the dashboard. What the dashboard is about is it gives employees access to their processes. So right here, you can set up control panels, and inside of these control panels, the office manager in this situation could go to these processes and use them. So what I mean by use them is that employee could view the content within these processes. If there's a checklist or a form in it, or there's some evidence that it needs to be completed, or there's a tool within it that needs to be completed, then the employee can go to that process and use it. So this is an onboarding process. So here the employee could look through these work plans and kind of remind themselves of what to do, like how to prepare for a new employee who's starting the next day. Just going back here on this trail, if there's a checklist in the process, like this one, new start checklist for business manager, for network systems manager, these are position specific, but here's like just an onboarding checklist, a general one, or new employee preparation checklist. So the employee can go here and check off that they've done these things in preparing for the new employee to arrive, and then save that back to Touchstone. So a lot of stuff happens on the dashboard, but in a nutshell, this is where processes are used. It's where they're accessed and used. So let's move away from here, and I'm going to go and show you about the process libraries. So this is called the 4 key functions right here, for those of you who aren't familiar with it. Inside the 4 key functions, this is where the libraries are accessed. So there are 4 functions, and you see them listed right here. Guiding the business is the first function, and this has processes in it related to strategy, management, guiding the business, things you use to guide people and the business. Getting the business is getting new business in the door. So it's marketing strategy, intake, advertising. Running the business is the office processes. So it's admin, finance, human resources, IT, the support processes. That's another way to think about it. And then doing, lastly, is operations. It's production. It's delivering of your legal services and everything related to that inside of doing. So if I select one of these 4 functions, now I'm inside this function. And I can see that I'm inside of it because this says guiding right over here. I'm in the guiding the business function. And when I'm in the guiding the business function, I can then see the other functions. Here's getting, running, and doing. Another way to look at it as a whole with a picture is through clicking this 4 key functions tab. So here I see guiding, getting, doing, running. Each one of these functions has libraries inside of it. So the libraries inside of guiding the business are related to business strategy, employee management, board of directors, training, so things you use to guide. So every library that is in Touchstone is organized inside of the 4 key functions, and every process you'll find in those libraries are related to the subject of that 4 key function. So again, guiding, management strategy, marketing strategy is here, advertising intake, operations, and then admin finance. So that's how you know which library to go to according to what you're looking for. So I'm going to click here on guiding the business. Right here towards the top of the screen, this is how you access the libraries. So again, we're inside of guiding, and I know that because it's listed right here. So if I go add from process library here, I'm not going to see all the available libraries. These are the Pilmma libraries, the 4 that you see here. And then at the bottom always is the Touchstone library. So the Touchstone library is called general processes, meaning general processes for all types of businesses. This first Pilmma library are processes only related to personal injury. This second library are processes related to Social Security law. Workman's comp law is the third. And then the 4th library is called Pilmma General Law Library. So these are processes that aren't law type specific. They're for all law firms. Still industry specific, but not law type specific. Inside of the guiding the business function, there aren't any processes inside of personal injury, Social Security, or workman's comp. So when you go to this library, just by clicking on it, you're going to see this, and it's empty. The reason there are no processes in the law type processes or law specific is because there's not really a way that you would manage employees differently based on the type of law that they're practicing. So that's why. So we're in guiding the business, so business strategy as well as employee management. There's nothing law type specific related to that. So, but where you will find things related to strategy and management that are industry specific is here in the Pilmma library. So let's click that. So now what you see are the processes that are available inside of this library. These right here, this one is grayed out because it's already in my system. So I've already downloaded it. And you'll be reminded of that when you hover over it because it's going to have this big red thing is going to appear saying it's already there. This one too is already in the system. When you want to download the processes from the libraries, you can either click this, which is select all, and then hit save, and all of them will be downloaded. I don't really recommend that though. I think it's better for you to look at the titles and decide what you think is going to be useful to download. Now in this example, these are all kind of strategy, employee things, and there's not very many, so it might be, a good idea just to hit select all and then you'll get them all. Or if you don't do that, then you just select individually just by filling in these little boxes next to the titles here. Pay attention to the top here where it says subfunction. This tells Touchstone which subfunction you want it in. So let's put these in the strategy subfunction and then hit save. Now Touchstone's going to download all these processes that we selected and it put them into the strategy subfunction right here. So these are the sub-functions, strategy and employee management. These are the categories of work within guiding the business. Right here is how the sub-functions are controlled. So if you want to change these inside of your system, then this is how it's done right here through the sub-function tab. So all of these processes just got added from the Pilmma General Library. Once the processes are added from the libraries, I recommend you just take a look at them. So what I mean is you just click right on this 5 business boosters for your law firm. This is a strategic type process. Right here you see the title, 5 business boosters for your law firm. Underneath the title is the objective. This is like the purpose of the process. Below are 5 business boosters for your law firm. When put in place, can increase the bottom line immediately. So it tells you what's in this process. This is a strategy process. It's building something strategic for your business. All of this is click to edit. So any of the library processes that you pull down and you decide you want to keep it but you don't like the title, you can just click right on it and it opens for you to edit. The objective is the same thing. Click right on it, opens for you to edit. Over here to the left, you're going to see the documentation that's been created in this process. So this came from the library. Whatever you see under the title of a tool, like this is a work plan, and I see this work plan here. This is the title of it. This is a checklist, but look, there's no checklist. So not all of the processes in the libraries or the ones that you'll develop will use all of these tools. It's not necessary all the time. If a process doesn't need a checklist, you don't use it. And if I don't see one listed underneath this title, then there wasn't one in the library either. There is a custom form though. So here's the custom form and I see it right here. Create your 5 boosters. So when I click on the work plan here, this just goes through the different types of the 5 boosters that came. This is a Pilmma process. And you're meant to just read and kind of understand what each of these boosters are. So differentiate your law firm, mind your database, create a referral culture. So you can read about what these boosters or things that help you boost your business are. And then you can go here to this custom form and you can literally work on it right here. So this custom form is built here on the process tools page. This one came from the library. If you want to use it to actually build your 5 business boosters, that's done on the dashboard. So just so this comes full circle, I'm going to link this process to a job description. And let me close this for a second. All I did was click this button here, link to job description. I'm going to put it on the Office Manager because that's the control panel I have right now. So now I just linked this process, the 5 business boosters, to that, the control panel of the Office Manager. And if we go back to the dashboard here, since I have a control panel assigned called Office Manager, now that that process is linked to it, when I click it, I'm going to see it right here. So if I was going to actually work on the 5 business boosters for the law firm, this is where I would go. Like I said in the beginning, I'd go right to the dashboard, I'd select that process. I could call up the work plan here and kind of remind myself of what these 5 business boosters are. But then I would probably go to the custom form. So now all the fields in this custom form are live. So I can answer these questions here and work on how do I differentiate the law firm? What is the plan for mining the database? What is the plan to create a referral culture? And I write it all out, and then I can save it back to Touchstone. So right here in the dashboard view, I can't edit or change any of these things. I'm just using this process. I'm filling it out. Once I've completed it, if I want to show it to other people or we want to take it and do something more with it, you can print it from here, which actually creates a PDF that can be emailed or sent. So let's go back here to the 4 key functions and back to guiding the business here. So these, again, are all those processes we just downloaded from the Pilmma library. And the idea is to use these. And how you use them is you assign them to a person on the org chart who's going to be using it, who's accountable for it, and then they can go here to their dashboard and they can access the content of it and they can complete it when it's assigned to them. If you look at a process, a library process, like let's go to this one, end of year planning, and you decide this is just, and you look at the work plan, so there's 3 work plans over here, the end of year planning. This says next year's goals. This looks like a really good process. I think it's probably a good one for all businesses to use. But let's imagine that you looked at it and you decided, we don't do end of year planning this way. This isn't a good process for us. So you've looked through each of the work plans here, looked at the content and decided, now we don't want to do this. If you go back, I'm going back to strategy here and guiding the business. If you take that process and you drag it here to this delete folder, I'm waiting for it to turn green. That lets me know I'm on it. And I let go, and then I hit delete. Now that process is gone. You can see it's gone from the list. But if I go back here, add from process library, and I go to the Pilmma library, this is where it came from. Now you can see it's now available back into the library. And I could click here and then add it back whenever I want to and hit save. So I'm showing you this because you shouldn't be afraid to delete library processes or nervous about it, because any library process that's deleted, it puts it back into the library. You can always go and get it later. Another reason why this is important is if you did kind of go crazy and download everything from the libraries, or you are excited to see all that content and you want to look at it all, which is fine, make sure that you go through and really scrutinize each of those processes. Decide if it's something that you can use, if it's something that you can edit and change and make your own. If the answer is yes, keep it. If you look at it and you're at all ambivalent about it, either it's so far from how you would do it that it would be more work to change it than it would be just to make a new one, a new process. Or another key point is if you look at that process and you say, this looks like a good idea to us, but we just do not have time for this right now. So like this process, for example. If you look at this, and I think everyone would agree this is a great strategic exercise, but if you're thinking we're so busy, there's no way we can do this in the next 6 months. If that's how you feel about it, then delete it. Drag it to that delete folder and get rid of it. And the reason why you want to do that is you don't want your system cluttered up with processes that you're not committed to using and implementing right away, because then it's just more processes, which is more confusing, more to deal with. And by deleting it, it's putting it back in the library. You can always go get it 6 months from now or a year from now. So if I go back to add from process library here, I want to show you the general process library here in guiding the business. So if I click the general process library, now this is the Touchstone library. These are processes that are related to guiding the business because that's the function we're in. So they're strategic and they're management related. Again, these are grayed out right here because they're already in my system. I've already downloaded them. But you can see the Touchstone library is much more extensive than the Pilmma library, at least in this function. When I'm scrolling, once I get to the bottom of this inner scroll bar, I have to go to the outer scroll bar and pull down. That's how I see all of them. So again, you're going to see a lot of processes related to employee management and strategy here in the guiding the business function. With our libraries, with the Touchstone libraries, I would not suggest doing something like this, because then you're adding everything. And it's going to be literally, if you do that in every function, it'll be 100 processes or more. And they're not all things that you would want. So look through them and decide. Bank funding, if you don't do bank funding, if you don't think you're going to be doing that anytime soon, don't choose that. Board of Directors administration and meetings, if you don't have board meetings, don't take those. So look through them and decide what are the processes that you really feel would be good for you, and then add them. We also have some strategic planning processes here, so I'm just going to add one to make a point here. So I'm going to add this one called strategic planning, and I'm going to put it in the strategy subfunction and then hit save. So here it is right here, strategic planning. The Pilmma libraries also have strategic planning processes. So this one is creating your mission, values, and strategic plan. This one is live your strategic plan, which I'm assuming is like implement it, use it, end of year planning. And now you also have one from the Touchstone Library that I just downloaded, strategic planning. So it's a lot of content related to strategic planning. I'm going to move this employee performance review over here because it's more employee management. So if you download all these strategic planning processes, what you want to do is look at each one of them and decide what you want from them. So look at this one, create your mission, vision, values. Look over here at the work plan and decide, is this something that looks good to you? Is this a way that you might go about strategic planning? If you like it, keep it, then go back, and then go to another one of these strategic planning processes like this one. So this has got a whole other set of tools on doing strategic planning. So let's say you want to keep the Pilmma one, but you like this custom form here that has a tool, a form that you can use to build a strategic plan. You can take this tool out of this process and move it into the other process. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking the best of what you like out of these strategic planning processes and you're moving those tools together into one process. So to move a tool, you just hit this little icon here that says Move Process Tool. Hit the drop down. Now I'm going to look for the strategic planning process that I want to move this tool into. This one right here. And then I just hit save. So with these library processes, we give you lots of options, and then you even have more options with the Pilmma processes. But what you don't want to do is keep all 4 of these. Rather, what you want to do is look inside of each one of them, decide what you like and what you don't like, and combine them. Then when you're done and you've taken everything you want out of these, say, then just delete these. Drag these over to the delete and hit delete. And then what you'll be left with is this process that you decided to keep with the best of those others inside of it. So it takes a little bit of time, but I think this is how you can maneuver through these library processes and not get overwhelmed by them, but take what you want from them. This might be another example of that. This is the Pilmma performance appraisal process, and then this is the one from the Touchstone Library. So you might look inside of both of these and decide what methodology do you like better. Is there stuff from this one that you want to move into this one, or vice versa? So let's go to another function. So here I'm just clicking on Getting the Business. So now we're in the Getting the Business function. And when I go Add from Process Library here, I'm now seeing the same library titles, but the content within them is different. Because I'm in Getting the Business, these are going to be things related to marketing strategy, advertising, sales. There is one industry-specific or law-type-specific process here in the Personal Injury Library. These two, Social Security and Workman's Comp, don't have any law-type-specific processes inside of Getting the Business. The Pilmma General Law Library does have a lot of legal or law firm specific, but not law type specific. So here into the Personal Injury Library, when I click that, there's this one, converting new callers to client. So if we download this, I want to choose the right subfunction, intake, and then hit save. So someone's asking a question that I think is useful. So they're asking why they don't see what I see when they go to add these processes under subfunction. So if you haven't customized your sub-functions, then when you hit the sub-function drop-down, you won't see these. You'll just see what you have. So let me show you it a different way. So these are the 4 sub-functions I have: intake, marketing strategy, social media, advertising, lead generation. If you haven't put in these titles for your sub-functions, when you go add new process or you go add from process library, and I'll show you this way, you're not going to see options to put processes into these types of sub-functions. You're only going to see your own. So if you haven't customized your sub-functions yet, go here where it says sub-functions and add some, edit, and create your sub-functions, because that's one of the key steps of building the 4 functions. You want to make sure you've got your categories right. These 4 sub-functions I think are pretty good for a law firm. I don't think you need to have to deviate from these. Marketing strategy is a good sub-function. That's your planning, your strategizing, your analyzing your market, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. Social media is super important for law firms. Internet advertising, or advertising in general, that's a good one. It's nice to have these 2 broken apart because you can see what are the social media ones as opposed to what's the general advertising you do. And then intake, obviously an important sub-function. So if I go add from process library here, I went to the personal injury library just to backtrack, and then we downloaded this process right here. So this has MVA in front of it, motor vehicle accident. And when we click on this, then you can go over and you can see there's 2 work plans in this process. And I know that because they're right under the title here that says work plans. There's 2 scripts in this process. And I know that because they're right listed underneath where it says scripts. So this is, I've seen this process downloaded and used in different ways with the Pilmma members. Even if you're not personal injury, a personal injury law firm, or you practice multiple types of law, this can still be customized and kind of made to work for you. It's just basically a intake person approach where the call comes in, intake person takes it. They use scripts down here to go through qualifying the lead and then passing it off to an attorney to have a sales conversation or have a needs assessment. So I think this is generally done in most types of law firms this way. I think it's a good way to do it. I think it's better if you have an intake person who's solely focused on that, taking in those leads, rather than somebody who's a paralegal or a law clerk who's consumed with other things and is taking calls. So this can all be customized and kind of made to work for you. This is all click to edit, click it open. So obviously this is a good library process. If you don't have a perfected intake process, one that's documented, one that you know works, one that people are trained on, then this would be a good process for you to download, this converting new callers to clients. It gives you just a way to do it. In this second work plan, there's an overview of the process in this flowchart. So new caller comes in, goes to the call center or intake person. Are they qualified? Is attorney available? Yes, no. So if you like flowcharts, this kind of shows you the flow. Each of these boxes on the flowchart should have a task and a work plan that describes how that happens, or a script related to it saying what the person says. But again, if you don't have a perfected intake process that is documented, this process would be a good place to start. So I'm just going to go back here to getting the business. Inside of, I go back from add from process library, and we go to the Pilmma general law library. So these are all processes that are built by Pilmma, and they're for law firms. So you can take all these, again, just like we did in guiding the business. You can go select all if you want, or you could go one at a time and then put them in the right sub-function and then hit save. So now we're just downloading all of these processes from the Pilmma general library. When you add more than one at a time, depending on your internet speed, you can see it just took a few seconds for them all to come down. So now all these processes got downloaded here. So same idea as I showed you before. When you download those processes, click on them one at a time. Go to the tools that are in them. So this is 7 steps for creating a client advisory board. Look at these tasks. Ask yourself, is this something that you want to use? Introduction. This is an introduction to creating an advisory board. This has also got some documents in it right here, an example letter that you could send out to your clients, and then a client survey. If I click this letter, then you'll see this in the document tool. So this is something you'd send out to try to get people to come to your advisory board. And then there's a survey document right here that you could send out to get feedback. Let's go back here. So there's some good, I think, in the getting the business library inside the Pilmma stuff. This is mostly like strategic type things. So things that you would use to build better advertising methods or build better marketing and lead generation. There's an associate business marketing plan here that's pretty good. Blog writing, that's also great. So if you want to start blogging, and there's a blogging process down here, but this one is how to begin with that. So over here, choose an audience, choose a topic, write an initial headline, write your article, edit, and get started. And then we've got down here a custom form for a blog writing form. So this is the topic, the initial headline, the article. So this form kind of goes along with, these 2 forms go along with these exercises, and then an editing checklist. This would be used on the dashboard, these forms. So whoever was accountable for the blog writing, their manager or the managing partner wants to make sure that they've thought it through thoroughly, and so they would go through this process, study it, understand each of these steps, and then they would go through these custom forms and come up with the article and do that all on the dashboard. And then hypothetically, the managing partner could go and run a report and see that the marketing person or the associate had really thought through the topic and read the blog and then approve it for posting. So that's just an example of how this might be used in Touchstone. I'm just going to go back here to marketing strategy. So there's a creating winning ads. That's another kind of strategic thing. This is another intake process that's in the general library. There's not a whole lot in this, but I just wanted to show it in case people download it. So this is how to take an intake call. It's 4 things, pretty straightforward. Use the script, be sure you get the person's name, always be a good listener. Your goal is not to gather information, but to decide if this is an important client and build rapport. If you like these 4 steps, you can move it into your own intake process or into the motor vehicle one that you downloaded, again, by using this little toolbar item. This is an uploaded file that is called Case Intake Form and Script. If you see an uploaded file, you just select it, and then you're just going to hit View File. This is a very simple form, I'll warn you in advance. But this is an opportunity to show you how to view files. So you see it's opening down here at the bottom of my computer. I'm just going to hit View File. So this it's a scanned in document, but you still could probably cut and paste from here. So introduction, talk, acknowledge, confirm. I think that's an industry thing right there. I don't think they meant to spell that wrong. Execute, and then here's like this case intake form. So for those of you who don't have anything like this already, this might be, a good form to draw from. But again, it's available in case you want to use it or you think it's advantageous. And it's in the getting the business right here, and it's called intakes. Let's go back. So there's more strategic things here: media, advertising, newsletters or sending out newsletters. 3 keys to client conversion. Here's one on USP, differentiate or die. So again, the purpose of these processes is for training. It's to give your marketing department or the person who does marketing, or if you're a small law firm, the managing partner, tools to develop your marketing. And that's one of the great things that comes from Pilmma, is these great marketing ideas. And what we've done is we've made them more usable for you. So instead of having to go to the Pilmma toolkit, or instead of going there and reading it all as an article, we've put it into a tool in Touchstone that can be assigned to a person. And also within these, you're always going to find these great custom forms. So this helps to implement it, and it can be done all inside of Touchstone. This is developing a USP and questions that will get answered around that. Okay, so I'm going to go back here again. So here inside of Getting the Business, there's also the General Process Library. Oops, that's always here. So if I click this General Process Library, now you're seeing all the Touchstone processes. You can see there's a lot here, especially in the Guiding the Business function. There's quite a few. I can drag down this side to even see them all. I feel like really in this process, and I know I've made this point over and over, I would not do this and just add them all, because then you really are going to have an overwhelming amount of processes to comb through. The deciding of the kinds of processes you need and the implementing and using of those is complicated enough. If you compound that by having way more processes than you probably need or will ever use, it's just going to make it more complicated. So rather just go through each of these. This is called the active referral process. When you hover over our library processes, it gives you the objective of that process, like what the purpose is. This is a sales process with the setting of the first appointment is designed to convert 20% of your lead campaign, setting appointments. Now for your law firm, because you do intake and sometimes the attorneys aren't always available, this might be a good process to download. So if you're interested in that, just take that one. Attracting target customers, cold calling, that's probably not something a law firm would do. Competitive analysis, that's a strategic thing, maybe. So just go through and analyze each of these and decide what you want to download. If you ever want to do any email marketing, these two might be good. This is for using Constant Contact to do email marketing. This one's just a newsletter process. Anything around Google Analytics, how to create a video studio. So again, analyze all these, decide what you want to add. If you do LinkedIn on social media, these two are pretty good. Press releases and SEO, if you do that, take that, and then add. Then immediately after you add these, look at them. So look at this appointment process. If you like the content in it, you go over here, preparing for the first appointment, scheduling the first appointment, handout. If you like any of this, leave it. If you don't, then go back and delete it right away. So let's go to another library. I'm just going to highlight these last two libraries, the Doing the Business and then the Running quickly, and then I'm going to talk about some key managerial processes that are in our libraries that I think are relative and essential for every business. So I'm going to go to Running the Business next. So now here we're in Running the Business. Here in these libraries, there are processes related to accounting, finance, recruiting and hiring, human resources, administration, IT. These are the office processes. These are the processes that are used to support the rest of the business. These are some good sub-function titles. So accounting, financial management is like the higher level finance things. Administration, every business needs administration. IT, onboarding, recruiting and hiring and onboarding a new employee, and then human resources. These two could be combined. You don't have to have them separate, but some type of human resource subfunction is what every business would need to have in this function. So if I go add from process library, there aren't any things in these these law type specific libraries. So if you go here and you see 0, it's because there isn't anything that's law type specific. Although there is quite a bit here in the Pilmma General Law Library. A lot of this is already in my account. That's why these are, again, grayed out. But here they have behavioral interviewing. There's compensation and bonus determinations, employee handbook, firm attorney's policy manual, hiring. I'm going to close this out. And then if we go back here and go to the General Process Library, now you're seeing the Touchstone Library. So again, this has got a lot of content in it as well. These HR processes are pretty good in our libraries. So the satisfaction survey one, employee termination, everything that starts with the word new here. So interviewing, introduction and orientation, onboarding, recruiting, that's new employee search. There's some good ideas for office processes like office inventory control, maintenance, organization. Those are good things. So same idea, you download what you want from here. So let's go next to doing the business here. So in doing the business, remember this is the delivering of your legal services. So this function of all of them will have the best Pilmma industry specific processes because this is where the rubber meets the road, really. This is where industry matters. So everything you're seeing here is designed directly for a law firm and not for any other type of business. These are just some processes. These have all been downloaded from the Pilmma libraries. If you go add from process library here, this is where these three libraries come alive, really, because this is where the law type specific processes are really relevant inside of doing the business. The personal injury library, so all of these that start with the word MVA are related to motor vehicle accident. And if I hit the subfunction drop down here, I would want to have a subfunction that was related to the delivering of these services. So you could have one and call it motor vehicle or personal injury and then download those into that. I'm going to close this out. I've seen this done different ways with the Pilmma members. They would have like Social Security like this and a subfunction for that. Or they may decide to do it by trial and pre-trial or settlement. So whatever subfunctions make sense for you. Again, I've seen them by like stage in the legal services delivery flow, like trial, pre-trial, settlement, discovery. Or I've seen it like this, Social Security, personal injury, and then all the processes related to that underneath that particular header. So there's no right and wrong here. It's about how you like to see it. If we go here to Social Security, you'll see all these Social Security specific processes. I'm going to just close this out so we can go to the next one. Then if you go to Workman's Comp, same idea. These are all the Workman's Comp processes. If you don't do Workman's Comp, then you don't want to download these processes. Again, it's just going to make it more cluttered for you. If you're interested in any of these, because the title is interesting to you and you're thinking maybe you could use this and make it not related to that type of law, then obviously you can download it and see. But I would suggest that you look at those and delete the ones you don't want. And then lastly, here's the Pilmma General Law Library. So these are all processes that aren't law type specific. So these are good complaints, the client's truth, auditing files. So in this case, you probably do want to do select all and just take a look at all those because they're probably relative to you in one way or another. I'm going to close out of these. All those processes are here, the ones that we were just looking at. Then we have the General Process Library, same as in the other functions. These processes aren't going to be super useful for you because they're generic for all industries. Now, having said that, there are some things in operations that are generic for all industries. Things like client requests or client satisfaction or customer appreciation or client appreciation or customer complaints. Those, everything starting with C here, are probably the most boilerplate by industry. When you get down into these like workplace safety, that's probably another generic one. I think this has kind of OSHA stuff in it, but still you could probably edit it and make it your own. I mean, now in today's world, workplace safety and having like fire drills and emergency preparedness is really important. But other things like project planning, productivity reporting, that might not be stuff that's relevant to you. Let's hit close here. So that is a highlight of each of the libraries inside of each of the 4 key functions here. So again, you're going to see these all by subject area according to these 4 subjects, and then you'll see the Pilmma member libraries and then also the Touchstone library. Let's go to guiding the business right here, back to guiding. So in terms of employee management, I think it's really important to have managerial processes that people, your managers, use to manage their employees. That creates consistency. It creates comfort and reassurance because all the employees know that they're going to be handled with the same care and respect and attention. There's nothing worse than having one manager in one department and another where they're completely managing in different styles, generally one worse than the other, and employees feel really unsettled by the different approaches that are being taken to management. Bad managers are the #1 reason why employees quit. I've read this over and over again. Every survey done by the business administration is always the same. Bad management is why employees leave. When an employee leaves, that's costing you money, big money. If they've been with you for a long time or even a short amount of time, the cost of training is very high, and it's an unknown cost because we don't tend to track it. Having documented processes in a system like Touchstone makes training more efficient and more effective, but training is expensive regardless. So these are all reasons why building some basic managerial processes can benefit your business. It also helps managers to learn what they don't know. Oftentimes managers are promoted beyond their abilities. They haven't gone to business school to be managers. They haven't been trained in management. They haven't had extensive management training. It's kind of this on-the-job, kind of figure it out as you go. And that's the worst kind of management because the manager feels so overwhelmed and so taxed with this idea of helping their employees thrive when they're super busy on their own and they just don't know how to do it. So this is where the Touchstone libraries and the Pilmma libraries really help. So right here you're seeing some key managerial processes, all of these. Employee performance review, that's a really important one. This is the Pilmma version of that, and this is the Touchstone version. So you can look at both of these, both downloaded from the libraries here, and decide what you like inside of them. I hope most growing law firms that are of a substantial size are doing performance review, but you may not be. And more importantly, you may not be doing it consistently in the same way. So each employee within each department having a performance review once a year and having be done in the same consistent way between from one department to another. But then another thing to think about is if you don't have a documented process for this, a manager might be doing it differently every year because they're kind of making it up as they go, or they're just trying to follow a form that doesn't really work very well. So having some kind of good managerial performance review process is essential. This in Touchstone one shows you how to take the job description in Touchstone and use that to evaluate the employee. So you literally take the processes on a job description, you put them into a form that we've given you down here, and then you evaluate the employee based on the processes or the work they're accountable for. Another key managerial process is this new employee 60-day review. So this obviously is for new employees. In the running the business function, you're going to see things related to recruiting and hiring and onboarding, which are very important things to do. But then after an employee has been there for 60 or 90 days, whatever term you like better, doing a review is a good idea. So this process has got, a document here where the manager can literally go through and ask questions about their first 60 days. And these aren't just, how do you like it here questions. They're more succinct than that. And they're really getting the employee to start to think about, what has been your experience here, what more can we do to support you, which is another great managerial technique that gets employees to stay and be happy. When a manager sits down with them and says, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What is your experience of this place? How can we make it better? In a sincere way, that goes a long way in making an employee feel at home, taken care of, and heard. Having meetings processes. So this is one from the Pilmma library called attorney meetings. This is one from the Touchstone library called one-on-one meetings. So having effective meetings is really important, and each department having effective meetings. And there's some simple techniques that you can use to make sure your meetings are effective. We also have this process here called meeting guidelines. And it's just a series of standards on how to have effective meetings that everyone needs to follow. Like the meeting starts on time, irregardless of who's late. The meeting doesn't get rescheduled. Basic things like that. This one right here I think is particularly good because it's a process in which a manager is called on to meet with an employee one-on-one, once a month, once a week, once a quarter at minimum. And they're required to prepare for that meeting. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to go over? It's a check-in meeting just for that employee and their manager. This is good management right here. It's where a manager cares enough to sit down and say, these are the things we're working on. These are the issues. How are you doing? In a one-on-one setting. If a manager is doing meetings like this once a month with each employee, when they sit down to do the performance review, it's going to be super easy for them to do that because the communication is there. It also stops managers from just walking into their subordinates' offices and saying, what's wrong with that, or you did that wrong, or just the multitasking that goes on as a manager. Where's that? What's happening? That's the kind of frustrated management that managers honestly I don't think like, but employees like it even less. This forces a manager to think through these things before they attack the employee with it, before they come at them with it. So one-on-one meeting process, also a good managerial process. This kind of thing is also really effective. Philosophy of the firm or management philosophy. This is a way to create a management philosophy where you sit down with your management team and you say, what kind of management do we want to have here? How do we want to make our employees feel? What do we want to do for them? What are the management processes that we want to use and be committed to? So you sit down with your team, you have a conversation like that, and you put it in writing. And then that gets everyone on the same page with it. This kind of process is good if you have issues with this, task delegation and work management. So this is like, how do you delegate something to an employee? I think we've all experienced managers that just dump stuff on you. Do this, do this, do this, email. Okay, then where is that? When is it done? And you just feel like, wow, I have too much to do. I can't even see straight. The answer to that is task delegation, a process that a manager uses to delegate. It's not just throwing it at people. There's a step-by-step that they go through to do it, to help the employee manage what they're being asked to do. These two type processes, I think every business needs these, unfortunately. You need a way to have a formal conversation with an employee about an issue that's happening. Managers need to get out of the habit of just sitting down and, just venting to the employee about how they're late or what they did was wrong. Anything from minor infraction and things that they're doing wrong or to very serious things that they're doing wrong. If a manager has a process for it, the employee knows that they're going through that process with the manager. So I'll show you this here quickly. So here's like a warning checklist. Agree to meet with the employee privately. Prepare for the meeting. State the specific problem that you're having. Review that with the employee. Here's a discipline documentation form if you need something like that. So this has, I don't know if those of you have heard of Simon Sinek. He's like he's a really well-known management consultant. This process has some of his techniques in it. So tell me about why that happened. This is the impact that that has had on the department or on me. This is how you could do it differently. So those types of things. It's basic communication, but it really goes a long way when you train your managers into handling things that way. Lateness, that's another in these two categories. Resolving problems, employee issues. This, maybe doesn't need to be used, but it's a good technique to teach your managers. Employee coaching and training. These two are good. Performance indicators. I feel like this is a really essential managerial process. It's on the other side of management, which is the manager's accountability to their manager or to the department to track the results of the department. So this process can be downloaded from the Touchstone Library, and it has examples of indicators in them. Like this is a human resource indicators like employee turnover, employee training, employee morale. This is a good stuff to track, and it goes all the way back to what I said in the beginning about employees leaving because of bad management. If you implement these managerial processes, maybe 2 or 3 of the ones I showed you, and then you start tracking things like employee turnover and employee morale, you're going to see an impact. And then it's more technical things like here's marketing and sales indicators like conversion rate, follow-up rate. You can also do operational indicators if those are interesting to you. So productivity, and some of these don't pertain to you, but productivity might. So those managerial processes are downloaded or can be downloaded from the Guiding the Business function right here in Add from Process Library. By the way, all of this stuff can be used in Touchstone. That's the key point of it. So when you assign these managerial processes to a manager's job description, so all of the managerial positions get assigned these managerial processes, then they should be required in Touchstone to go and learn them, study them, and use them. So here's all those managerial processes that have been assigned to the office manager. This is my job description. And then when I access these processes here on the dashboard, then I can use them. So here's all the HR processes. Here's all those managerial processes. When I'm preparing for a one-on-one meeting with my employee or doing a performance review, I can go right here to the dashboard, go to this one-on-one meeting form, and fill it out, save it back to Touchstone, print it if I want to. So this is evidence that I'm preparing for this once-a-week meeting with my employee. If my manager then wants to make sure that I'm having my one-on-one meetings, the managing partner, they can run reports of what I've done here to see that I'm having those meetings, to see that the performance reviews were done, to see that I had done a verbal or written warning. If you want to learn more about or hear in more detail about the, let's go back here, about these library processes that I was just going over, here in the Resource Center, there's more elaborate videos about those processes. So if you go to videos right here, there's an area here called Process of the Week. These are processes that we highlight weekly. And if you go here to Strategy and Management, Guiding the Business, you're going to see all these videos on how to use those library processes. So here's effective meetings. Here's that one-on-one meeting process. There's one on performance review. If you just click these links, then there's this little video here on one-on-one meetings for managers and performance reviews. Well, it's both. And these are short. They're like 15, 20 minutes. So I have some questions that I'm going to take offline because I know I'm out of time. So if you've asked a question, I'm going to email you directly and answer your question. These mastermind sessions go on once a month, and everybody, all Pilmma members are welcome. We handle a different topic every month and try to go in depth in Touchstone and related to that topic. In addition to these mastermind meetings, there are the Pilmma drop-in sessions that happen on Thursdays at 9 o'clock Pacific time. If you're not registered for those, make sure that you contact Pilmma and get yourself registered. You don't have to show up, but it's a good reminder of where you can come and workshop things that you're doing in Touchstone. And that goes for 1 hour from 9 to 10 Pacific time every Thursday. Thanks for coming, everybody. Take care.